Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Flame Entertainment and Sports. It's your boy Rob here. Hope everyone's doing good out there. Please make sure to keep up with us on Instagram and TikTok at the flame_ES. Also, we'd appreciate if you could subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. And yeah, guys, on today's show, we're going to be starting off in the entertainment world as I give some quick thoughts on episode 6 of The Traitors. Then I'm going to talk about a show that I started watching. It's called Shifting Gears. It's starting with Tim Allen, Kat Dennings, Sean William Scott. It airs on ABC, streams on Disney Plus and Hulu. So I'm gonna give some quick thoughts on that show. I'm really loving it. And then in the sports world, gonna do some sort of a early Super Bowl preview for you all out there, as we have the New England Patriots set to take on the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl next weekend in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium. I can't wait for that matchup. So with all that said, once again, make sure to keep up with us on Instagram and TikTok at the flame_ES. And now let's start off with some Traitors talk. All right, guys. So in the entertainment world, gonna be giving some thoughts on episode 6 of season 4 of The Traitors. I've been covering The Traitors on here, and it's been such a blast to be able to give my thoughts out there with the world about one of my favorite shows in the world. So yeah, The Traitors episode 6. Basically, the episode starts off from where we left off in episode 5. So episode 5 ended with us trying to figure out whether or not someone had picked up a shield in the game that was played during that episode, and if someone did pick up a shield, then the Traitors could murder someone overnight. If someone didn't pick a shield, then nobody could be murdered by the Traitors. Ultimately, episode 6 starts off, and we find out that nobody could be murdered because nobody picked up a shield in that game during episode 5. So, everyone's there at breakfast. Nobody got murdered. And basically, this episode, the main gist of it, I guess you could call it, in the round table, a spoiler alert, but Ron Funches, a comedian, he was voted off. In terms of Ron overall, obviously this started off in episode 1 or 2, I want to say, where episode 1, it was the first round table, and Ron heard Portia, right, saying these like weird comments, and ultimately I thought they got a traitor. Ron got the majority of people to vote Portia out, because Portia had said stuff like, oh, we killed this person, we killed that person. It was like comments like that where it's like, oh, okay, so she's a traitor. Ultimately, she ended up not being a traitor. So ever since that first roundtable, people have kind of had it out for Ron in the castle, and it's kind of I understand like both sides. I understand why the people were suspicious of him, because maybe they felt like he was like he put Portia out because he is a traitor. But then at the same time, it's like so many days had gone by that I was kind of shocked that people were still hung up on the whole Ron situation. And I felt like it ended up being a perfect distraction for the actual Traitors, right? Candace, Lisa, and Rob Roush, right? So ultimately, yeah, Ron is voted out. And, the episode 6 ends on such a major, like, cliffhanger. And basically, episode 7 is going to start off with, like, some sort of gala or ball, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's like this big dinner. All the faithful and Traitors are all dressed up in like these super nice outfits, and Alan's dressed up and all that. So episode's gonna start off with that, and ultimately, what's gonna happen at this gala or ball, I forgot what they called it on the show. The Traitors are gonna have to do a murder in plain sight, and basically how they're gonna get this done. So Lisa is gonna be wearing an amulet, so a piece of jewelry. I think she's gonna put it on her dress, and ultimately, whoever touches that during this party that they're having is going to be the person who's murdered in plain sight. And basically for a murder in plain sight of this caliber, or this specific type of murder, I feel like Lisa's not going to be able to specifically target someone. I feel someone's going to have to be like impressed or see like how shiny the amulet is, and you're like, oh my god, that's so nice, like where'd you get it? I feel it's going to be something like that where they touch it and ultimately that person will be murdered. A lot of people are predicting Colton. Colton, by the way, was another major headline in episode 6, as he's been throughout the whole season of The Traitors so far. And Colton ultimately almost got Lisa figured out as a traitor right before the roundtable. He started to talk about Lisa to some people, and then at the roundtable, he talked about Lisa, and he even went one-on-one with her, and he's like, I want to win this with you. You just got to protect me. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm a faithful. And then in the roundtable, Colton almost got his wish, and I believe they came 1 or 2 votes shy of Lisa being voted out, and ultimately, they would have gotten their second traitor, being that they already got Donna Kelsey early on in the season. So that would have been super cool, and ultimately, I still think there's a legitimate chance that Colton is going to encourage the rest of the group to vote out Lisa. I don't think Colton is going to be the one that's murdered in the amulet murder, whatever you want to call it. I think it's going to be someone unexpected or like kind of hard to predict, because like I said, at the end of the day, it's gonna be someone who's like kind of impressed by that or who loves jewelry. But then I feel at the same time we're kind of deep already, like in the middle of this competition, that some people might be a little like standoffish, or maybe they suspect like something weird about the amulet. I feel like Colton maybe will notice that she's wearing that big amulet, and maybe he'll kind of warn some of the people not to touch it. I wouldn't be shocked, because regardless of how people feel about Colton, what he's done outside of the show, I do think Colton has played a great game, because he's just gone with his gut. And at the end of the day, I think that's all you can do. He hasn't held himself back. He hasn't been worried of criticism or what people are gonna think about what he says. I think he's playing it as good as you can at the end of the day. And ultimately, my gut feeling is telling me that he's gonna get people to vote out Lisa. And ultimately, if that does happen, obviously it's a huge victory for the faithful overall, and it's a huge victory for Colton as well if that's able to happen, because then people are gonna start to actually believe him rather than being like skeptical about him. Yeah, that's how you describe it. So yeah, ultimately that's kind of some of my thoughts on episode 6 of the Traitors. Now I want to talk about a specific show, right? To stay in the entertainment genre really quick before we head into the sports world. So as of recent, I've been watching this show called Shifting Gears. I'm sure some of you have heard about it. It airs on ABC and then streams on Hulu and Disney Plus. It stars Tim Allen, of course, a famous freaking legend, right? Like an amazing actor. We know him from the Santa Claus movies. We know him from Toy Story, as he is the voice of Buzz Lightyear. We know him from Home Improvement, from other shows and projects he's done. Christmas with the Cranks. I feel that's such an underrated movie that he's part of. And yeah, Tim Allen stars in this show. Basically, he's a father. His wife passed away, and then his daughter, who moved to Vegas many years ago, comes back to town and wants to move into his house, as she's divorcing her husband, and she has 2 kids, and they want to move into this house here. And his daughter is played by Kat Dennings, another amazing actress. The earliest memories of me watching her on screen were on Big Mama's House 2. She's been 2 Broke Girls. She's done a lot of great things in her career as well. Then we have Sean William Scott. He's in it as well, Stifler from American Pie. But basically, to get back to the story a little bit. So yeah, Kat Dennings is Tim Allen's daughter. And then Tim Allen, what he does is a job. He owns kind of like a body shop. And Sean William Scott is one of his workers. And Sean William Scott is the best friend of Tim Allen's son, who, at least where the show's at now, we still don't know who his son is. But ultimately, Sean William Scott, there's like this underlying storyline throughout this whole show so far. By the way, we're 2 seasons in. I think there's like 10 or 11 episodes in season 1. I believe there's around 10 or 11 of season 2. And I believe there's like 2 more left of season 2 that haven't aired as of this recording. But ultimately, there's like an underlying love story in a way between Sean William Scott's character and Kat Dennings' character. Ultimately, though, they're kind of afraid to say their true feelings to one another, because they don't want their longtime like friendships to be ruined or jeopardized in a way. So that's one of the main storylines. And as I said, Tim Allen's character, he is a widower, so he lost his wife, unfortunately. But as we go on to season 2, we finally see him being open to dating. Not that he necessarily went out to find a date, but ultimately, right across from the body shop that he owns, there's like this dance studio. And the owner of that dance studio, her and Tim Allen, start to get feelings for one another, begin to date each other. And then ultimately, where we last left off, which is, I believe, the 9th episode, or I forgot exactly what episode, but the most recent episode that has aired, it kind of ends with Tim Allen's new girlfriend telling him that she's going to be moving out for 5 months because she's going on tour to choreograph, I believe she said, for Blackpink or some sort of K-pop group. And then ultimately, the sad part about that, the bittersweet part, is in this episode, we saw Tim Allen say, "I love you" for the first time to his girlfriend. So it kind of ends, yeah, with her telling him the news, and then, them agreeing that they're kind of breaking up. But then, like, it ends with her saying that she loves him too. So, I kind of summed that up in a couple minutes. Obviously, there's a lot more that's gone on. Yeah, there's a lot more, obviously, that's gone on through the first 2 seasons of the show. But obviously, I'm not going to say every single detail. And although I did name a couple of the actors, I want to name some of the other ones that I did not know prior to watching this show. So we have, and now to say the actual character names rather than just the actors and their actual names. So Tim Allen's character is Matt, Kat Dennings is Riley, and then Sean William Scott is Gabriel. And then Tim Allen's girlfriend, the dance instructor or dance studio owner, her name is Eve, and she's played by Jenna Elfman. Now to get into some other cast members that I really enjoy. So we have Daryl Mitchell, who plays Stitch, and he works alongside Sean William Scott and Tim Allen in The Body Shop. We have Barrett Margulies. She plays Georgia, who is the daughter of Kat Dennings and who's the granddaughter of Tim Allen. We have Maxwell Simpkins, who plays Carter. He's the son of Kat Dennings and the grandson of Tim Allen. Then to name a few more of the great actors part of this show. So we've had some really nice cameos, actually. You know, we have Jesse Williams from Grey's Anatomy. We have Brenda Song. She's in an episode, of course, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, Sweet Life on Deck. We've had Gabriel Iglesias appeared, Jay Leno, Mookie Betts, a star baseball player for the Dodgers. So, you know, there's been a lot of cool cameos as well. But and then also some of the main cast members from Home Improvement, you know, which was a show that Tim Allen was on for a long time. Richard Karn and a couple of the other people, they appeared in an episode as well. So that was really cool to see a Home Improvement reunion of sorts on Shifting Gears. So yeah, guys, like I said, I recently started watching this show. I've freaking loved it from the moment I first saw episode 1. So shout out to everyone there at Shifting Gears. It's a tremendous show. As I said, there's a couple episodes left. I believe the season 2 finale will air on February 4th on ABC, and I think it streams the next day on Hulu and Disney Plus. So make sure to go check out Shifting Gears. Once again, shout out to all the cast and crew part of this amazing show, and I have to make sure to give them some love on here because I feel this show is super under the radar. No one's really talking about it, and it deserves love and respect because it's like a feel-good show. Obviously, it has comedy, but it also has some cool life lessons and some real like heart-to-heart type of moments, some great lessons overall. It's just a great show altogether with so many amazing, you know, characteristics and people that are part of this amazing show. So yeah, guys, gonna wrap up our entertainment section on here. If you guys have any thoughts on the Traitors, make sure to drop them down here below in the comment section on YouTube. You can also share your thoughts with us on Instagram and TikTok at @theflame_ES. If any of you are watching Shifting Gears or plan to watch it and have any thoughts or questions, once again, drop them down here below in the comment section on YouTube. You could also DM us or, you know, reach out to us on Instagram at @theflame_ES. But yeah, guys, it's going to wrap up the entertainment talk. And now let's head over to the football world where we do a little early Super Bowl preview as we have the Patriots set to take on the Seahawks in Santa Clara. All right, guys. So in the sports world, we're going to be going over, you know, the upcoming Super Bowl matchup coming our way next week between the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. So both of these conference championships, first off, were absolutely amazing to watch. They're highly contested. The 4 final teams we got this year in the NFL, I want to credit all of them because I truly believe they all belong and they all, you know, deserve to have that opportunity of, you know, clinching their way into the Super Bowl. So first off, we had New England defeat Denver in a defensive battle in a game that ended with so much snow. You couldn't see the lines on the field. You couldn't even, like, balls would be punted and the announcers, they couldn't even tell where the ball was landing. You know, it was just such an unbelievable defensive battle. You know, for me, that Denver New England game, that's my type of game. You know, that's my style of a football game that I prefer overall. I feel like most people might disagree because people get like so excited by like flashy, you know, games with high scores and, you know, touchdowns left and right. To me, and every type of sport, not just football, I'm always overly impressed by great defense rather than a great offense. And literally, New England won 10-7. It was just unbelievable, this game. You know, New England, first of all, I want to shout them out and congratulate them. You know, Mike Vrabel, first year as their head coach. They're coming off of back-to-back seasons of 4 wins. And, you know, Vrabel gets in there and he's already leading them into the Super Bowl. And they have a chance now to become the champions of the NFL, right? And, you know, I want to start off with the defense. You know, I've been talking about them on here throughout our, you know, playoff coverage here on the podcast. And, you know, I've expressed a couple of times that I've, like, felt that this defense has been, like, disrespected. Like, not that nobody's given them credit necessarily throughout the season, but I just felt that, like, the majority of people were just talking about Drake May and Mike Vrabel. But then it kind of seemed like, oh, so that's all they have, right? But, you know, so I never truly felt that, you know, they're being appreciated and respected. But at the end of the day, I feel that the Patriots have used that as an extra motivation in a way, because you look at the way their defense has played in these playoffs so far. You know, throughout 3 matchups, they've only allowed 2 touchdowns. They've caused 8 turnovers overall. And, you know, time and time again, they just continue to step up in the clutch, especially. I feel like they rise up to the occasion, basically. They save their best for last. Whatever situation you put them in, more likely than not, they're going to come through for you. And it's a defense full of a majority of players who not many people know about. And I just think it's so damn special what Mike Vrabel's created over there in New England. And I've talked about how I feel this defense has been unlocked in the playoffs because their pass rush has been more consistent right now than it had been at any point throughout the regular season in terms of, just overall consistency. And I feel the pass rush, deserves a lot of credit. I've talked about Caleb and Chase on here a couple of times. New England brought him in this offseason on a 1-year deal, kind of like a 1-year proven deal. And, if it didn't really work out for him this year, it was looking rough for him to get another opportunity going forward. For those of you that don't know, a couple of years ago, he was a first-round pick by Jacksonville. It didn't really work out there. Last year, he signed with the Raiders on a 1-year deal. Didn't really produce much, but at the same time, it's the Raiders. And then this year, he joins New England. He's paired up with Mike Vrabel and this amazing defensive unit. And Caleb and Chason has really been one of the X factors and key difference makers throughout this postseason run so far for New England. You have Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle there in the middle. This guy's been a superstar since his days at Alabama. I remember him, coming out of college and watching his highlights for the draft he was in. And I was just like, man, here's another superstar coming out of, the Saban-led Crimson Tide over there in Alabama. And yeah, he's been in New England his whole career. Ultimately, he's been there through the ups and the downs when you really look at it. When he came in, it was kind of like the end of what had been like that incredible dynasty that they had there, winning 6 Super Bowls. Ultimately, he's had 3 different coaches, and I believe it's his 5th year, I want to say. He started off with Belichick, then he had Gerard Mayo last year, and now he's coached by Mike Vrabel. And I think finally, since New England is winning with Barmore on the team, he's starting to become some sort of a household name in a way, especially during this postseason run. I think many people hadn't really talked about him because, like I said, New England hadn't really been successful within the past couple of seasons, but now that they are, people are seeing that this guy's a true superstar defensive tackle. He's a top 5 defense tackle in the league. He's one of the best out there. He makes such a difference literally on almost every play. So shout out to Christian Barmore as well. And then, of course, Christian Gonzalez, in this AFC Championship game, to get back to the game really quick, he made a key interception in the 4th quarter. A couple weeks ago, I said the day that Christian Gonzalez could fully put it all together, this guy could be the face of the league in the quarterback, specifically in the cornerback position. He could literally be the top corner in all of football. And yeah, to get back to this game, like I said, he made a huge interception in that 4th quarter. But ultimately, yeah, this was just a defensive battle. New England's offense for the majority of the game couldn't really get anything going. It's kind of been a trend throughout these playoffs. I feel like they start slow, and then ultimately they're able to pick it up. For this matchup specifically, they ultimately did enough, and their defense made stop after stop. But we do got to credit the Denver Broncos and, Jared Stidham, their backup quarterback. He, of course, started in the AFC Championship against New England due to Bo Nix being, out with an ankle injury that he suffered in the divisional round game against the Buffalo Bills. I felt Jared Stidham did enough for Denver to win, actually. Ultimately, this was such a similar game for both teams in this one. Like, Denver's defense, led by defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, was absolutely amazing. They kept making stop after stop, kept giving their offense opportunity after opportunity, and I feel it was just literally the same storyline for each team at the end of the day. But ultimately, New England was just able to get those 3 extra points. This game included 2 missed field goals by each kicker. Andy Borregales, Bo Canes, the New England kicker, and then Will Lutz, the Denver kicker. But ultimately, yeah, 2 missed kicks. Each team had 1 touchdown, and New England just had an extra field goal, and that was really the difference in the whole game. But ultimately, the weather storyline in this game was insane. So for those of you that don't know, throughout the majority of this contest, it was really a sunny, whatever, bright, cold day in Denver. It looked like perfect weather conditions for a football game. Then around the 6-minute mark in the 3rd quarter, all of a sudden, some flurries started to come down. We're like, okay, there's some flurries, it's cool. Then all of a sudden, within a matter of minutes, it was just like a bunch of snow coming down. The field was white, as I said. You couldn't even see the lines on the field. Like, there would be punts, and the commentators didn't even know what yard line the punts were landing. It was just an insane atmosphere. It was a game we'll never forget when you look at the weather aspect. But like I said, ultimately New England, they scored the 3 extra points. Both defenses were absolutely elite in this one. But at the end of the day, New England is our winner. They've won the AFC Championship. AFC Championship. And Mike Vrabel's first year as their head coach, and now they move on to San Francisco to face off against the hot Seattle Seahawks. And speaking of the Seahawks, they took down their division opponent, the LA Rams, for the 2nd time this season. This is the 3rd matchup, being that the two, that they faced each other twice since their divisional rivals during the regular season. The Rams won the first one. The Rams were dominating in the second one. Seattle stormed all the way back, and now in this one, Seattle ultimately won once again and knocked out their division rivals in the Rams. Seattle, they've been overly impressive, especially, I was super high on the Rams. For those of you that don't know, the Rams were my Super Bowl pick to beat New England, actually. And what Seattle just did to the Rams was overly impressive for me. Mike Macdonald, second year head coach, what he's done there, he's transformed the whole franchise back to what it once was around 10 years ago, I want to say. What he's done with the defensive unit is absolutely unbelievable. I feel that they're such a similar defense to what the Philadelphia Eagles were last year. And I still think even in the Rams game, the defense was amazing, but I still think that pass rush could be even better. And if they're able to get that going, it could literally be what the Eagles did to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year, just going after Patrick Mahomes. But ultimately, New England's offensive line is much better than what the Chiefs' offensive line was at the time of the Super Bowl a season ago. So, yeah, Seattle, overly impressive, as I said. They have a bunch of different playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. They have their rookie, the corner, number 3, Nick Emenwari. I think I pronounced that right. He's a rookie. He's been absolutely unbelievable for Seattle. He made a tremendous difference. He's one of the key factors as to why they defeated the Rams in the NFC Championship, and he's a freaking rookie. Then you have another rookie on the offensive line, Ray Zabel. I was super high on him coming out of the draft this year. He's been unbelievable. Those are 2 impact rookies right away for a team that's heading into the Super Bowl. We had to go back to defense really quick. Then at the linebacker position, Ernest Jones was unbelievable in this NFC Championship. So Emenwari, Ernest Jones, just a couple of the guys that truly stood out there on the defensive line as well. Someone who I think has kind of been an unsung hero for Seattle. He's kind of been a forgotten player overall in the NFL within the last couple of years. Leonard Williams, the former first-round pick of the Jets out of USC. He's had an unbelievable career. He was great with the Jets. They moved on from him, traded them to the Giants. Now he's been in Seattle the last couple of years, and I think Leonard Williams has truly grown to be a great NFL player. I think he's one of the most underrated players in all of football, but those are some of the standouts. With that said, the one guy that Seattle needs to step up mentally in the Super Bowl for them to truly have a chance to defeat the Patriots is Rick Woolen, the corner opposite of Emenwari, right on the other side of him. He made too many boneheaded mistakes, not only in this game, but this whole season. I remember early on, he was inactive for a couple of games. He's kind of been a distraction in a way in the locker room. He's always been a talented guy ever since he came out of college. And I remember he was such a fun story a couple years ago when he was a rookie. And obviously, he has all the tools to be a all-pro elite corner in the league, but a lot of times mentally he does stuff that kind of distracts the team, kind of causes issues. And I feel like Woolen, if he's going to keep up that behavior, I don't think it's going to work against the New England Patriots. They're going to take advantage of that. But now to go on the offensive side of the ball for Seattle, for New England, Seattle, that running game and that offensive line has been absolutely on point. They're able, throughout the whole season, right? They had a pretty good running game, but I feel like within the last 4 or 5 weeks, they truly were able to establish a legit, elite running game. Led by their offensive line. It was just absolutely, those guys are playing incredible right now. So shout out, of course, to John Schneider, the longtime Seattle GM. He did a tremendous job this offseason of really overhauling and completely building that O-line, because for the last 2 to 3 years, Seattle had arguably one of the worst lines in all of football. And like I said, one of the guys on there was a draft pick, Ray Zabel. He's done a tremendous job for Seattle. Then, you look at Kenneth Walker, their star running back. I've always loved him. I remember the first time I ever saw Kenneth Walker play, he was playing in college for Michigan State. They're playing here at Hard Rock Stadium against the Canes. I was at the game. Ever since then, I fell in love with that guy. I wanted the Dolphins to draft him, in the draft that year. Unfortunately, Seattle drafted him, and, the rest is history. And now I feel like he's finally having his moment in terms of getting his name recognized throughout the whole NFL community, because this is the best team he's been a part of throughout his short career in Seattle. And yeah, Kenneth Walker is unbelievable. They've been doing it as well they didn't do it like their number 2 running back, Zach Charbonnet. He did not play in the NFC Championship game. And regardless, they were still able to do it without him. But yeah, I just feel this running game right now is the key. And then ultimately it leads to some open passes, in the play action game with Sam Darnold. He had arguably the best game of his career in the NFC Championship game against the Rams. He's been amazing. I'm super happy to see the journey he's been on. You got to talk about Jackson Smith and Jigba, the best. I'll say it now. He's the best wide receiver in the league this season. I mean, this guy's the ultimate difference maker. That's what, people fall in love with receivers. Some of these elite guys get paid so much money, But at the end of the day, the majority of them never live up to that salary or that high contract that they're receiving from their given team. But ultimately, Jackson Smith and Jigba is worth every single penny that Seattle's paying him. This is a guy, he was a top pick a couple years ago out of Ohio State. Seattle had DK Metcalf already in place. They had Tyler Lockett. Ultimately, they move on from both of those guys prior to this season. You know, in the offseason, they make Jackson Smith and Jigba their number one receiver. They add in Sam Darnold from Minnesota. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, we saw it in this game. I mean, this guy is just the ultimate playmaker, the ultimate difference maker. I mean, like, he's just unbelievable. I don't know how else to describe him. So that's the thing. Like, both of these teams have guys that stand out. But the main part and the best part of it, the reason they're in the Super Bowl against each other is because they have full units of guys making a difference. It's not just like one guy here, one guy there, and the rest of the unit doesn't really do anything. That you can't do that and make it to the Super Bowl. So literally, and the number one thing, by the way, why I think both of these teams are in the Super Bowl, their coaching is just at another level. You know, I've raved about Mike Vrabel on here for a while, but obviously we got to give Mike Macdonald his flowers too. And both of these coaching staffs have just been absolutely unbelievable. You know, Mike Vrabel bringing back Josh McDaniels to New England, right? The 6-time Super Bowl champ, elite offensive coordinator throughout the Brady Belichick era, the Patriots dynasty. Vrabel bringing him back has been an ultimate X factor. That's why New England's back in the position that they're in right now, with a chance to, you know, raise another Lombardi trophy. They're 7th overall. And then you look at Seattle, right? They have Clint Kubiak, the son of Gary Kubiak, former Houston Texans coach. Kubiak's been a tremendous offensive coordinator for Mike Macdonald this year. He's a finalist right now, I believe, for the Las Vegas Raiders head coaching position. With that said, though, now to get into the Super Bowl a little bit. Obviously, next week we'll do another Super Bowl preview episode in a way, because obviously next week is when the big game will occur, not this weekend. But I do got to say this. This is something that really stands out to me. It's going to be an essential factor in determining who wins this Super Bowl, you know, Super Bowl 60. Kubiak, as great as he's been, and the end of this game, right, against the Rams, if I'm a Seattle fan, I would be a little scared, right? Like, ultimately it worked out. They did what they had to do. They won the NFC title game. They did it great. But look, at the end of the game here, Seattle had the ball, and all they had to do was basically, you know, run the ball, take a knee, whatever it may be. And ultimately, they called a play where Sam Darnold almost got absolutely destroyed. They had him like kind of drop back for a pass, even though it was a situation where all you had to do was really burn the clock. And I really got scared that Sam Darnold was going to get hurt. So those are the decisions that really make the difference in these big games. Ultimately, you know, Kubiak and Seattle, they're you know, it worked out because they're winning. There wasn't much time left for the Rams to really do anything. I believe it was like 30 seconds, 20 seconds. The Rams didn't have the ball. So ultimately it worked out. But against a team coached by Mike Vrabel, you can't do those type of mistakes, because Vrabel and the Patriots will completely take advantage of that. I don't know if I described it like correctly there, but for those of you that understand me, I'm just saying, like, the coaching here by Kubiak, he has to have the best game of his career as an offensive coordinator. And obviously that goes to every other coach part of this matchup, every other player, whatever it may be. But specifically, I'm watching the Kubiak matchup there against the Vrabel-led defense of the Patriots. And I just think if Kubiak does those little mistakes, the Patriots defense will eat the Seahawks offense alive. But ultimately, I think this is going to be a defensive battle. And at the end of the day, it's going to kind of come down to the offenses. And I think it might go down, you know, to a last-minute drive. But ultimately, I'm not going to wait till my full preview next week. I'm going to say it now. My pick for the Super Bowl, I have the New England Patriots defeating the Seattle Seahawks right now. The last time I checked the line, you know, in Vegas right now, Seattle, at the time of this recording, is favored by 4.5. I believe they started off as a 5 or 5.5 point favorite. Like I said, I'm going with the underdogs. I'm going with Mike Vrabel. They've been the underdog the whole season. Even coming into the playoffs, nobody was putting any respect on their name. Other teams were getting talked about. New England wasn't getting any credit. And I just think time and time again, they prove everyone wrong. And I'm not picking New England. And I'm not trying to, I'm not doing it to like disrespect Seattle at all. I can't go against Mike Vrabel. But I will reiterate this again. What Mike Macdonald and the Seahawks did against McVay and the Rams is absolutely beyond impressive. You know, I have to say it. What Seattle's doing right now, they're literally, they built their team through the trenches, and within a matter of a couple months, they've literally transformed themselves from a you know, playoff wild card bubble team to literally having an opportunity to become the champions of the whole football world. And then obviously, like I already mentioned, New England, after back-to-back 4-win seasons, Bill Belichick's final season, then last year, Gerard Mayo's their head coach, and now have Vrabel come in and lead them all the way to the Super Bowl in his first year as their head coach is absolutely beyond impressive as well. But basically, both of these coaches, it's the Mike and Mike show, right? And the Super Bowl 60 matchup with Mike Vrabel on one side, Mike Macdonald on the other, two unbelievably elite and impressive and competitive coaches, man. They're just, what they're doing is unbelievable. And I cannot wait for the Super Bowl matchup, next weekend on Sunday in San Francisco. In Santa Clara at Levi's Stadium. I cannot wait to watch that matchup next weekend. But yeah, if you guys want to give any early Super Bowl thoughts or predictions you have and you're watching here on YouTube, make sure to share your thoughts down here below in the comment section. You could also share your thoughts on this upcoming big game matchup with us on Instagram and TikTok at @theflame_ES. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Flame Entertainment and Sports. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing my thoughts on the Traitors, my thoughts on shifting gears, and of course, my early thoughts on the Super Bowl matchup coming next weekend between the Patriots and the Seahawks. If you guys want to share your thoughts on any of these topics, or if you want me to cover any specific topics going forward on the podcast and you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to drop your comments down here below in the comment section. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and TikTok. Follow us on there as well at @theflame_ES. Once again, we really appreciate if you could subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And with all that said, till next time, everyone, take care.